Let's get started. We are speaking, of course, with the Fratellis. Jon Fratelli. The new album is Half Drunk Under a Full Moon. And Jon, before I say bonjour and how are you and all that stuff, I'm going to say, if Living in the Dark is not a single, then I don't know what you're doing. I just don't, because that is such a great song.
Well, that makes you and I are similar in that I don't know what I'm doing either. But when it comes to singles, long ago, I mean, for a start, for us, like a single is just a way of promoting our record. You know, we're not trying to get on the hit parade.
But it doesn't hurt.
It doesn't hurt, and but like it's been such a long time since I remember any of us having much in the way of opinions on singles, because it's really not. It's not my job, you know. I don't know what gets played on the radio. There's some songs though that seem so obvious that everybody, you know, it doesn't even come up for discussion. Like, Need a Little Love seems like so obvious that it doesn't even need discussed, you know.
Yeah, Need a Little Love, by the way, which is the first video and it's up on YouTube, is a great start. And I'm just saying that at some point when you get to single 2, 3, and 4, Living in the Dark has to be considered. But with that, as we say in Montreal, bonjour. And let me just ask about the difficulties here. You know, Half Drunk Under a Full Moon is coming out. It's coming out in April. And normally the band, you know, throws everything in the van or the bus and heads off on tour. And now we've got the whole COVID situation, but not only that, in the UK, you've got the whole Brexit situation where trying to get to France or trying to get to Germany is going to be a complete cluster. Talk to me a little bit about some of the challenges you're going to face in promoting this record, because the whole put it out tour thing doesn't seem like it's going to be able to happen.
Yeah, you know, it's just not going to happen.
Wow.
And so on the one hand, you have all these opportunities that have been taken away from you,
right.
You know, because it's not just the sort of the touring side of it. You know, there's lots of things in terms of promoting a record that you would normally do and you would go and do in person, you know.
Yeah, stop by the BBC One or BBC Two or whatever you're doing.
Or even, you know, even simple things like going and doing little shows in record stores, you know, on the day the album comes out. There are so many things that are kind of off limits now. The flip side of that, and I think this comes from the fact that we've, you know, this album's going to be a year late, and I think that year has given us time, not really given us, it's given our management time to, you know, all of the plans that they had laid out, you know, were swept away in one go. But they've had a lot of time to really think of other ways that we can try and make up for it. And, you know, in the last sort of 3 or 4 weeks, day by day, we're getting more and more in the way of promotion, you know, opportunities that might help to really plug that gap. So, you know, would we much rather have done it the usual way? Of course. But I think it's been interesting to watch our manager have to find all these new, you know.
I mean, he's actually had to earn a living. No,
I didn't mean that.
He's had to earn his keep.
No,
I know you don't mean that.
He's the kind of guy who loves like that sort of challenge. Like I'm not a guy who likes a challenge. I like the opposite of a challenge. So yeah, some people thrive.
Yeah, and it's a great challenge. Let me talk to you in terms of musically and stylistically. Are you aiming for pop radio or for radio, or do you just write what you write and then you sort of let it go where it goes?
Yeah, it's the second one, because it has to be. There are some people who can clearly write to order, so to speak. You know, where if you said to them, hey, we want it to sound not exactly like X, Y, Z, but we want it to sound something like, you know, as comparable to that enough that it would be played on radio everywhere. And there's some people that can take that instruction and go, oh great, I know how to do that. But I'm not your guy for that job. That's you know, the fact that our first record got a lot of radio play, especially in the UK. You know, it seemed for a good year that it was on constant repeat. But that was sheer fluke. You know, I wasn't a big radio listener then, and I'm not now. It's just not a normal part of my sort of day-to-day life, which is, I probably shouldn't be saying, you know, because. But let me just sort of qualify that by saying I have no issue. You know, it's not like I dislike radio. It's just never been a part of my daily life yet. When I go and
listen, I completely agree with you. And I have these debates with my wife all the time. A song will come out, whatever, Go West or some, you know, Frankie Goes to Hollywood, and she'll start singing. I go, how do you know that? She goes, I used to listen to radio. I go, oh, because I never listened to radio. I always bought the album that I wanted, and I played the album that I wanted, and I just didn't mean anything to me.
But like at the same time, every time I go and visit my mum, no matter what day or what time of the day, no matter what she's doing, she has the radio on. So, you know, and I like that too. I like that the radio is this really, it's like a lot of people's best friend. But really, when it comes to trying to fashion something that you think, yeah, that'll get played on radio, no, I wouldn't. I'm the wrong guy for that job.
You're not Desmond Child. He knows how to write a good radio song. Let me just ask you the first.
Who's that?
Desmond Child, the guy who wrote all the songs in the 80s for Aerosmith, Bon Jovi.
Yeah, in that case, he knows how to write a good radio song.
He knows how to write a radio song. So let me just quickly ask you about this. So the first album does go off, and you get a bunch of singles, and you hit the road. I think with Kasabians, I think it was.
We did a lot of support slots as well as their own thing. I mean, I think the biggest thing was we did the Police reunion tour. Like that seemed like the pinnacle of if you're going to do support slots, then after that it's kind of downhill from there.
By the way, how do you get the Police support slot? Is that a record company? And I don't mean to be rude, but is that a record company buy on, or does Sting say, I like this guy, bring him over?
Do you know what though? There is an interesting story to that, which is, so I think this Miles Copeland Wright is the police's manager. I think in some way he and Sting were either they were with or either associated with the sort of the American label we were with at the time. So even though we were on, you know, I don't know what it was, Universal or Island Records, it was like a what do you call it? You know,
an imprint?
Yeah, like a little. It's part of that family,
right? The imprint label or the boutique label.
Yeah, so it just so happened. In fact, funnily enough, Lady Gaga at the time was on that imprint as well. I think this was when she was still using her real name and she hadn't become Lady Gaga yet. But anyway, so there was that connection, and we, you know, of course, we want the support slot if there's some going, and so we were, you know, we had just come to the States to play. Just a few little shows. I think we'd gone and done South by Southwest, and then I think we had done, you know, like a one-off show in like a club in Los Angeles, and then we were doing, I think, 2 nights in a club in like a small club in New York. So Miles Copeland came to the second night of the New York thing, by which point we'd kind of been on tour for about a good 12, 14 months at that point. And you know, my nerves were shredded, and I had nothing left to give. And I think that day we had played the Conan O'Brien show. So this was like our first big, you know, US TV. It was the first big TV thing we'd had of anywhere. So we'd done that in the afternoon, and it hadn't gone well. It had gone pretty badly. But you know, like it was done, like it was recorded, and it was going out that night. So because that was so early in the day and we weren't playing till like, 9, 10 o'clock at night, I spent the rest of that day on my own with, I don't know if it's the same where you are, or North America in general, but you guys, you can get these huge bottles of Jack Daniels, not just the normal size. These are like
supersized.
They're
it's
like
America.
Thick, and they must be at least 3 feet high. I bought one of those and decided to spend the day that way, because and within an hour I'd forgotten about the Conan O'Brien thing in the afternoon, and turned up for the gig. And as soon as everybody saw me, everybody knew instantly that, oh my God, this is a disaster. Not only because of the fact that this was the night Miles Copeland was going to come and check us out to see if we would be suitable for some of those police supports. And so I can't tell you what happened that night because I'm the last person that would know. But he was there, he was in the room. He even saw me come on for the first encore and play a solo version of New York, New York. Without really knowing, no, I knew the words. I did know the words, and that afternoon I had kind of worked out the chords, but I don't think it was a very good rendition. And even after all that, we still managed to get the gig. So maybe either he has a sense of humor, or we weren't as bad as I imagined we were.
Or maybe he was looking for a band that couldn't upstage the police. They'll be like, oh yeah, these guys are perfect.
Well, there's a third option, which is maybe he was more drunk than me, and so
yeah. That's right. He was more smashed than you. So let me just quickly explore that and get back to the new album. So you have this success, you have this tour, you fly off to Australia, everything is going well, and then you say, time out, we need a break. And then you go do Codeine Velvet Club, you go do the 2 solo albums, and then you come back to the band, or the band continues. While you were out doing these other projects, did you sort of just look around you and say, you know what, I like this band, I like these mates, I like this thing? Was it a question of coming home in a sense, or was it always? Go ahead.
The absolute truth is that during that period, and we weren't on a break, we really had split up. As far as, it's definitely as far as I could see, that there was there was no way it was going to happen. But I was, I was definitely a lot less. I'm in no way intelligent now, but I was a lot less intelligent then. But that time in between, I absolutely loved the things that I was doing. They were some of the most fun I've ever had playing music. So I really didn't give the Fratellis a thought at that time, and I realize as a soundbite that could sound terrible, but that's the absolute truth.
It's the truth.
But the flip side of that is that, and there was a certain point that I did start to realize, though, that there is still seems to be an audience out there that want to see these 3 guys play. And so in the first instance, it was just a case of, okay, well, let's just test that theory. And we did a few shows, and it worked. There were people bought tickets, venues that we were playing before we had separated were we were still playing those venues. And then we tried some more, and then before you know it, you think, well, okay, well, this seems to just be working. So we did what you do, and you start to make records, and you start playing full tours. But just the simple, to sort of simplify that, I couldn't be happier that we did that, because this sort of second chapter in this band's life has been so much more rewarding than the first one was. And this is I'm so glad that we didn't let that chance slip by.
slip by. Is there then such a thing as chemistry when they, because they always talk about band chemistry. It wasn't the same after he left. Did you know, you did the coding thing, you do the solo albums, you're playing with these different musicians. Did you get a sense of this is great, or did you get a sense of there's no chemistry here, or maybe both?
No, and that's the thing about chemistry, is that you know, you could equate it to the way people talk about you know, romantic relationships. You know, like you know, that there's the one. You know, there's the one. You know, that's a myth. Like, that's one of our greatest myths. It's a pretty harmless myth, but it's still a myth. You know, there are multiple people that you uh, that you could find that kind of chemistry with and spend the rest of your life with. You know, it's not just one. But the chemistry thing is also absolutely true as well. You know, when we started to play together, we'd never met before. We didn't know each other in any way. We came from really we were coming from three completely different places. And from the first moment that it was just the three of us in a rehearsal room, it had what you could definitely call chemistry. You know, like, you could smell it. It couldn't be ignored or denied. So there is definitely such a thing.
Just quickly talk to me about that, because a lot of bands, you know, it's, oh, these three guys were in high school and we were chums and we've known each other for 15 years and we thought, okay, we'll do a band. You really sort of answered an ad and went, all right, I'll go check this out. How can I put this? When you get together that first time, is it just like, oh, let's see what happens, and then you plug in, you go, oh, and were you not getting that with other bands and other situations, or was it just really you hit these three, or these two guys, I should say, and just went, oh, okay, yeah, this is a whole new ball game?
I mean, I wasn't in a band. I'd been in one band before that. I wasn't looking to be in a band. I mean, I really wasn't looking to be in a band. My only interest then, and really now, is to write songs and to be able to spend all of my time, if I want to, playing with these things. The whole idea of there being an end point where you might go out and play them to people, or you might record a record and then go out and, you know, and release that record, that's really not, doesn't come into my thinking at all. So there's a long convoluted reason why we even got to the point where the three of us were in the same room. There was a really particular reason. But as soon as we did, apart from the fact that I thought, there's something about this that's hard to place, but that really works. It was also completely the opposite. What I was hearing from this noise that we were making was the complete opposite of how it probably would have or should have sounded had it sounded like the reason why we were even there in the first place. That all sounds quite sort of convoluted. It's just that we got together to do one thing, because one particular record label liked a bunch of my songs. We got together really to do that, and in an instant, that went out the window, because something else had it didn't even develop. You know, something else was there on that first night that took us in a completely different direction.
And I'll just remind folks, Half Drunk Under a Full Moon comes out in April. And I'll finish on this question. You did talk about songwriting there. Is that something you want to see going down the future, where you'll just, you know, you give up on the performing and stuff and just be a songwriter and send songs to the Lady Gagas of this world and just be that guy?
The problem is I can't be that guy. You know, like I did, there was a point around about 2008, 2009, where my publisher asked me if I wanted to go down that route, you know, you know, you're clearly able to write pop songs, you know, with hooks. Everybody's, you know, these are the things that people seem to be desperate for. And I gave it my best shot. But the truth is, I don't know how to do that. I only know how to write for my own amusement. It's not even enjoyment. I don't always enjoy it. It's for my own amusement. So there is no alternative for me. Like, I either don't do it at all, or I keep doing what I've always done, which is to write for my own amusement. And the where that leads to is always, you know, a Fratellis record, and then everything that goes with that. And then, you know, I'm okay with that. Like, it's really not a bad way to spend your life.
Yeah, and you know, sometimes you need that personal connection to the song in order to sell it or to deliver it, and it's hard to just throw it out there and hope that somebody else puts in the emotion and the thought behind it and understands what you're trying to say. But under half drunk under a full moon, April 9th, as we say in Montreal, merci. Always a pleasure. We should do this at least once a year.
Let's do it once a week. Yeah.
Once a week. You'll be my new co-host.
I appreciate it. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Cheers.
Okay.
Bye-bye now. All right, and stop.